Today's show is brought to you in partnership with Clearmotive Marketing. I co-founded this high-impact creative agency over 15 years ago. We deliver marketing that matters to our clients through our three-pillar approach. Number one, research that delivers actionable insights. Two, creative that attracts and engages new customers. And three, which is the backbone of our client success, the people, process, and technology that ensure efficient, consistent, high-quality results. We have great ideas and incredible creative, which is expected from a national agency. What makes us different is that we also simplify workflow, use technology to speed up projects, and recommend activities that achieve higher returns. There is a mountain of work that happens behind the scenes to produce what our clients take for granted, and that's exactly how we want it. Because great creative combined with well-organized operations is why we have such long-standing relationships. For example, Honda Canada has renewed their contract with us annually for the last 12 years. Our clients are market leaders, so they're incredibly competitive. Efficiency, performance, and consistent results are the only way to get to the top and to stay there. If you're not getting the consistent results you need, I can help. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or check out clearmotive.ca. Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my returning guest from way back at the beginning, Miss Lisa Eyamie. How are you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I was creeping back into my archives and you and I were episode 22. And for most of my audience, they know we just cracked over 400. But more importantly, it was the date, January 2020, which we all know was before. Before the thing happened. So we'll get into a little bit of that because your industry that you've worked in prior to that was very dramatically affected. So let's camp on that for a second. Let's talk about who you are and what you do right now. Well, who you are, I guess that's a much bigger conversation. But what you do is Director Digital Roadmap and Innovation at WestJet. So let's just start. Give us the elevator pitch. What's the Director of Roadmap and Innovation do at WestJet?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an exciting role. It started back in February. We've just launched this new team over the last year at WestJet specifically. And really what we're doing is we're trying to help elevate and drive digital transformation across the organization. And so how do we do that? We've got, digital community and ecosystems where we're driving and creating vision and inspiration on having a digital mindset and how that helps and how automation helps us do our jobs better, cheaper, faster. We've got our digital methods, which is all about Agile and Scrum and teaching this new way of working, making sure that, we're moving from that traditional waterfall kind of method and really trying new things, pivoting, iterating, failing forward, all that kind of digital method as well. We also have rapid development. So we do proofs of concepts within our digital team where we help enable business value and business impact very quickly by trialing new technology. Versus waiting, 3, 6, 9 months in planning and requirements gathering. Let's just try some new things, do it really quickly, understand, learn, pivot, fail fast, fail forward, all that kind of nomenclature and digital transformation type of journey. So we're really about helping the business create their digital mindsets, their digital roadmaps, helping to use and leverage automation to do their jobs better. In a more automated fashion and really unlocking the people value side of things and the people side where people can now let some of the manual, repetitive types of tasks be done by automation and technology and really unlocking that value for our people so that they can be a little bit more strategic and work on the harder things, the things that require a human mind.
Where we are ideally best suited to apply our skills.
Exactly.
Talk to me a little bit about, I think from I don't want to say buzzword because it sounds like it undermines it, but there's a lot of terms in there that are very much associated with. I talked to some people we've been doing that for years, but there's a lot of thinking about you bringing this through the organization, and you throw the word digital in front of it. It's easy to move your mind to a certain place, but really it's a different way of thinking across the whole organization. Is what if I was to short line that long description. How much of that is yeah, sure, we're getting to digital, but this is a different way of thinking about literally how we approach solving almost any problem in the company?
That's exactly it. We call it the digital mindset. So how do we think a little bit differently that it's okay to start something or to be done something instead of being perfect? And so I think traditionally, that human sort of desire is, I don't want to start anything until I have that perfect strategy, the perfect plan. Everything is perfectly set out with business requirements and technical requirements and all that sort of traditional thinking of how we want to approach a problem. But I think it's really changing and shifting. What is our problem at the highest level and what's an okay solution? We talk a lot about okay, good, great at WestJet. And so instead of just getting to great all the time and having the perfect plan, which might actually in the end fail because we haven't tried anything and we've spent months talking about it. We've done this table exercise or this theoretic or theory of an exercise to understand, what could it be, instead of actually just hands to keyboard trying something. And so we're really trying to shift this mindset of let's try an okay solution. Maybe we get to a good solution, but you know what? Maybe we don't always have to get to great. Maybe okay and good is good enough for now. And so how do we move the needle? A little bit faster and a little bit sooner. And the key to okay and good is learning, is trying something new so that we can get those learnings. We also talk about, win or learn. There's no winning or losing anymore. So it's about winning or learning. And the way to get to win or learn is to try things a little bit faster, a little smoother, and just go for it. Just jump in and see what you learn.
You make it sound so easy and approachable and very palatable, which I love. And your enthusiasm is infectious. But I think about the way we did it, it's really about how do we de-risk things, right? Because the consequences of failure culturally, the consequences of how it can impact your career, is it really just about understanding that, well, actually, okay is not a failure and good, isn't it about that risk conversation? Because I'm going to do all my requirements gathering to make sure I really understand. So when I do the thing, I've de-risked it as much as possible. But what I'm hearing you say is the risk you create is you're not out on the bench. You're doing it in the ether where actually reality doesn't blow up your plan. So that all that de-risking actually maybe isn't de-risking as much as we thought it was back in the day.
Yeah, you have to evaluate risk. And I think especially in an airline industry, we need to be careful with safety. Number one, of course, as our organization, safety first on everything we do. Security, cybersecurity. We've all heard about all the things going on around the world with cyber and risk and all that kind of stuff. So as long as we've got safety, cyber, and regulatory in our industry, at bay, and we've understood that there's low risk associated to those, all of the other risk is let's go for it. Let's learn from it. And I think a lot of this, again, it's that human element of being okay with failure and realizing it's not failure, it's learning. So that's why we talk about fail forward. And so how are we actually learning from that experience? The other piece to this is psychological environment. So how do we create a psychologically safe environment for people to feel okay with something not going to plan? And that's a really hard thing. I grew up and learned about, perfection and not starting anything until I was ready to go. And I absolutely wanted to succeed. I didn't want to fail at anything. And what would my parents think? What would my teachers think? All this all these human thoughts that you get, but it's about learning. And I think we all have to become a little bit more okay with that and being okay with, done, not perfect. It's hard. It's hard to.
And it's relatively new from the perspective of failure's great, but for other people, not for me.
Exactly.
I don't want it. That's so. Talk to me about as a leadership team, even back when you started down this road, which so many companies have been on. How do you model the right behavior? Because again, leading by example isn't the best way; it's the only way. Talk to me about as an organization. Did you as a team get around the room and say, okay, we need to model this behavior. We need to show up making this okay because everybody's watching how we react. Talk to me a little bit about how that unfolded. You talk about it now more as it's arrived, but this is a journey so many companies are on. That's great to talk about in a meeting, but where the rubber hits the runway, sometimes it doesn't land. Sorry, that was a series of metaphors I'm going to be careful using.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's great. And oh my gosh, we're not there yet, right? So
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We are totally on our journey as well. This is hard stuff, right? So our team specifically has been stood up, like I said, just under a year. And we have been on this digital journey for years. Don't get me wrong. It's not just my team got stood up and now we're on this digital transformation journey. Everybody's been trying to do this digital journey for a long time. As you alluded to, not just WestJet, a lot of organizations have been on this journey for a while. I think that as a leadership group, it's about coaching and mentoring and asking questions and making it okay to learn and grow. And that's a really hard thing. So we could talk about it, but at the end of the day, we are very early stages for our organization as well, where we have, some business folks and some traditional long time tenured folks that have been growing up in this, let's not start anything until we have this, 6 months of requirements figured out. And so it's really about transitioning and working through this change management. And again, this human element of I know how you feel about this. Let's just try it and let's be okay with it. I honestly think it's about organic change. So we talk about you could put education in here. We could take courses. We could do the theory, but it's about living it. And I think that goes for a lot of different, philosophies and things that we try and change and try and do in our lives. But it's about living through it. It's about actually being the example of doing a proof of concept that's not totally perfect solution or technology yet, launching it in its okay state and being by their side. I have a really great example. We launched technology in one of our airports earlier this last year. And they're like, what do you mean you're going to give us this iPad with this stuff on it and it doesn't have all the stuff? How do we do that? Like, don't you need to train us on everything and all that kind of stuff? And I was like, you know what? We're going to stand right beside you physically. My team went to the airport with these agents and stood side by side with them to see, like, how do you use this thing? How are you learning from it? What's not working? What are the issues? And live, you're seeing it, you're having the conversation, you're asking the questions. And so I think it's about leading by example and actually living through that change and being alongside with our people.
And from a leadership team, being okay with like, hey, we're used to paying for upfront training, but we're not going to pay for that now because there's always a cost metrics here somewhere. We're actually going to keep people on site. Because I don't know about you, I've sat through many training until I start using the thing. I never really learned about it. I never really figure it out. I'm like, oh, but we taught you that in module 4. I'm like, it wasn't real. It was hypothetical in module 4. Now I'm standing in front of a client situation and I've got to deal with it. From that perspective, like, how is that from a proof of concept? Like, does something like that also show the rest of the organization, like, oh, wow, we can break our model of, especially in the airline industry, like you go, you do your training, you get certified, you reach a certain level. Like, it's very heavily regulated. Some might think your industry might have more challenges than others because of the deep roots, for good reason, in safety and regulatory. Was that part of it? Or does this more just about a universal human experience is what I'm kind of hearing a thread through everything you're saying?
Yeah, and I think this applies a little bit more to the corporate side. So, I don't want to diminish by any means all the safety regulatory training and all the certifications required to make sure that pilots and our aircraft maintenance engineers, et cetera, are fully trained before they do the things that they do. Again, safety number one. So none of this really is applicable to those particular types of roles. It's really more about the frontline folks in terms of how are we enabling our guest and the guest experience and making sure that they have the right, whether it's documentation or training or experience, to actually deliver the experience that we're trying to provide to our guests. And so when it comes to training and education, it's interesting, and documentation as well. One of the organizations and partners in our ecosystem, a large organization, you can probably guess, that has iPads and things like that. One of the things I learned from them was this amazing thing that the deployment of technology for them, they actually do no training. And the reason they do no training is because it should be so user-friendly that it's intuitive on how to use the thing. And so I think that's a really great lesson where if you have provided the right technology and the right solution in the right way in the mindset of the user of whatever that technology is, training and education and all the theory and all that kind of stuff, you need less of it because you've built the technology in a way that a user can actually use it.
For you, looking, of course, I'm creeping on your LinkedIn, and I knew you from back in the Longview days, end user experience, architect, PMO, and there's a huge amount of that in your history. How helpful or relevant has that been for you, kind of coming at it with, because that's a mindset already when you think customer centricity, truly thinking about what the customer needs before they need it, not what you think they should need.
Yeah, absolutely. I think project management and end user experience, or even just customer service, whether it's customer service when you're 18 years old and you work in a restaurant and you learn that kind of customer service.
I learned the most about people doing that job when I was going to flight school, which seems relevant to this story for some reason.
Exactly. So I think that end user experience, customer service, whatever you want to call that, it's all about the user of whatever your thing you're selling is, the technology you're providing, the experience you're trying to give to someone. You have to put yourself in their shoes to really understand what it is that they need and what it is that they do so that you can actually enable them to do the things that they do a little bit better.
Well, it really is that product management mindset, even over and above customer service, where you're really, I was on a panel recently and they said, what's a requirement for somebody? They're like, you don't have to care about the customer. You have to be obsessed with that customer. That is a prerequisite to even get into product management from their perspective, which I really like the word obsession. Yeah,
totally. And to be obsessed with somebody, it's not by working remotely on a keyboard and hoping that you're providing something of value to them. You're actually
you get it right.
Talking to them, listening to them about their experience. You're alongside them as part of their journey. You really have to become obsessed. You have to live a day in their shoes. And so I think a day in the life of some of those users, some of those employees, et cetera, I think is super valuable.
Yes, walk a mile. Talk to me a little bit, and I'm camping out on this a little bit because I talked to so many organizations where like, well, it kind of, and I've heard you say it like in a positive way. Like obviously there's a huge safety and regulatory side of your business that it came pre-baked. It's like that for a good reason. That industry's been around for a long time. Safety is paramount. Like one loss of life is like, oh, look at our numbers. We only lost one this year. No, zero is the gauge we use. Is there a challenge from an organizational perspective where you get a bit of a split in your culture? And I'm not trying to say that negatively, but I'm thinking about if I'm listening to this as a manager and I've got engineers or safety people out in the field. We live in Alberta. There's lots of places where there's a heavy amount of regulatory and safety, but corporately, we're trying to create a culture of like fail forward and fail fast. Or like the word fail doesn't even exist on a well site or on a rig because we don't want to think about that. Is that a challenge of trying to blend what is a requirement from an industry for a good reason with more of this fluid culture that you're talking about? Like, I'm assuming there's a lot of people that might be listening that might be going, yeah, that sounds great, but my company, we have this challenge.
Yeah, I would say it's not, because it's not negotiable. So from a safety regulatory perspective, like everybody knows it's in the DNA. It's not negotiable for us to try things in an area that has risk. From a safety perspective, one of the things that our CEO just said recently was we have to re-win the safety game every single day. It's not something that's assumed. You can't take it for granted. And every day when we wake up, we have to re-win the fact that we are a safe organization and the fact that we fly safely and all the things around safety and regulatory. So it's not like it's a zero-sum game in terms of like you have to re-win that every single day and not just rest on your laurels that, we've been clean, zero safety issues, no disabling injuries or anything like that for 45 days or whatever the number is. You actually have to re-win that every single day. So I think for us, we know that it's built into our DNA. It's not negotiable whatsoever. And so this idea of pivoting, of innovating, of trying new things, it's never at the risk of anything safety or, certification related.
I really appreciate that. It's not the old image of like 360 days without an incident. No, every day is its own standalone opportunity, and it has to be re-won. It's not negotiable. So talk to me a little bit about your team. Like, what is WestJet now? Like 15,000. Like how many employees?
Yeah, 15,000.
How that's what I thought. How big is your team? I'm just trying to create the correlation of the effort and energy required by a small high impact team like yours against such a large organization.
We're a team of 22.
Nice. Okay. Well, I could do the math, but percentage wise, that's a high impact team. Talk to me a little bit. And I'm thinking about anyone who might be in a similar role to you or wanting to push their organization there. How do you think about the balance of the role of the 23 play against the role of the 15,000 of creating that influence and that education and leading by example and all the things that are literally your daily checklist?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, I go back to this organic growth and organic change. This is a people change. Right? We talked about how this is a different mindset, a different way of approaching things. And so the way, in my opinion, to do this is through organic change. And the organic change starts with people like digital champions, people that are actually wanting what we're putting out there, right? They're wanting what we're selling. They're wanting our quote unquote
convert the converted, right?
Yes,
yeah. Start with your fans.
Exactly.
Start with your fans.
And so we're starting with the fans. And the key here is, again, not spending months, theorizing what could be. It's actually saying, what's one of the problems that you have? It doesn't have to be the biggest one. Because here's what happens with the biggest problems, biggest bang for your buck, right? You always talk about like, let's evaluate the one that's the biggest thing that will create the biggest impact. Sometimes just creating a small incremental change creates success. It breeds momentum, and that starts your flywheel, right? So how do you actually get somebody that is willing and wanting and has a business problem, wakes up in the morning, is like, oh man, this thing sucks. How could I do it differently? Those are the people that we want to partner with. And when we partner with those people, which we've already proven works quite well so far, I would say 6 to 7, 8 months ago, we partnered with a couple of folks in our operations team that had this pain, had this ache that they were ready for technology to help them solve. And we solved it with them within a 2-month time frame. And so how do we create quick change, a quick win, a low-hanging fruit, or however you want to term that? And then now we've got friends, we've got buddies, they want more. It's created this organic change. And so I think it starts with the people that are willing and wanting and want the service that you're actually trying to put out there. And that organic change will create and breed success. And then all of a sudden they're talking to their buddy in the business, are like, oh, did you know that, Lisa and Lucas and Anne-Louise and these people on Lisa's team created this thing for me? Like, look at this is amazing. And then that person decides, like, I need something like that too.
Well, the light bulb goes boom, right?
Yeah, exactly. It starts with the business.
would you say the industry at large, and I say industry being like the digital transformation crew over here, whatever that looks like, because that's a real mixed bag. Are we getting better at blending the subject matter expert with the technology experts? Like, I have a problem. I understand this so deeply because I've been working in this operational role forever. I have no idea what even the art of the possible is because I don't understand technology. That always has created so much. You even see startups where it's like, well, are you a subject matter expert? Are you a technology expert? Or do you have a blend of both? It sounds like from people I talk to, we're getting much better at going subject matter expert, technology and transformation expert. Let's hang out. Boom. 2 weeks, we've got something awesome. Is that improving, or are we just starting to, everybody's recognizing everyone else's superpowers?
That's the foundation of product management right there, what you've just described.
Okay.
So the foundation of product management is you've got a product owner who's a technical subject matter expert on the solution that they own, is coupled with your business partner, your experience manager, or whoever on the business side is the business subject matter expert. They have to be two in a box. They have to be buddies. They got to be best friends. They have to be living and breathing the same pains and the same, key performance indicators, the same business outcomes, the same business impact. They're always talking about how do we move the needle, but technical business have to be partnered.
Mm. And when you first engage, or that, I'm assuming you're out now, because your internal audience, ultimately it's always the customer, but your audience is the 15,000. Like if you look at the tiers of who's your first
Correct.
group. So I'm assuming you're holding lunch and learns. Like it's got to be a huge educational component to try to find those light bulb moments in amongst that 15,000, which there's lots, but there's always the early, the anxious, the adopters that want to run out and do it. Then there's the ones who are going to sit back and wait. Like it's a bit of a psychology experiment as well, isn't it?
It's interesting. When I was standing up my team over last year was the year of build, right? So bringing in, new roles, job descriptions, new people, transitioning and transferring people from other departments and areas into my team. One of the first team meetings that we had, maybe meeting number 2, when we talked about the vision of what we're trying to do and what does great look like, what does good look like and all that, my comment was, if we do our job really well, this team is growing. Because we can't keep up with the capacity and the demand from the business on everybody learning what we can actually do for them. And so that's how I see this is our small team of 22, whether it's process and lean experts that are required to, value stream out a process to make it ready and ripe for automation, or it's about trying new technology and showing how a dashboard or a data visualization might help create actions and insights. Whatever it is that our team is delivering and providing through our services, everybody wants it. And so I think that's what success looks like is more of our services are in demand across the organization. But yes, for sure, we are an internal, mostly internally fed organization. And I think some of the things where we've done a great job of showcasing, not as much through education and lunch and learns. We've done a couple road shows, what's a POC and why does it help? But again, like I could speak about this till I'm blue in the face and try and train people and educate them, whatever. It's seeing through doing. You have to show them through doing the work that actually this solution that they didn't think could help them actually does. And what does it do to unlock your time and your energy to do something else? So I think it's really showing the technology and showing the solutions instead of talking about it and educating. I think the education comes through the process that we've created.
Yes, we've all been through lunch and learns, went, that was amazing, and walked out and completely moved on with her life and forgot about it. Yeah. But your friend over lunch at the cafeteria says, oh, we're working with this team and this is what happened. And we did, they're like, they leave and they're spinning. It's in their mind. It's different now because there's a proof. So I'm curious, just the logistics of this, were you basically kind of given a mandate and then go create the thing? Was this I'm curious how this came together because I love what you're talking about and I love your philosophy around it. Just for people listening, how did you go from this wasn't a thing to this became a thing?
Yeah, for sure. So for those that don't know, WestJet went through a little bit of a reorganization last kind of January to April-ish timeframe. And so there was a big shift about, from a middle management and layer perspective and player coaches and really having the right spans and layers. We had managers that had one direct report, and in a large organization, that's a little bit of an inefficient type of setup. And so we went through the spans and layers exercise. And at the time, I was the executive advisor to our CIO and CDO, so Chief Information and Chief Digital Officers, 2 different executives. And so through that time as the advisor, I was able to help both our CIO, CDO with their org setups. And one of the org setups was this team. It made sense for us to have this kind of strategy and business development sort of team And it's through our visionary, through Chris Novosel. So our chief digital officer, he's done this previously at other airlines. And so it really was a model that he knew that worked. And it's a little bit shifted and iterated from what he originally had, but that's where it came from, was from our CDO and creating that vision of what does a digital transformation need to be able to succeed, and what's the foundation types of roles that have to exist for us to push this envelope and climb this mountain together. And it's a big mountain to climb. I mean, we're in an industry that has generally, tried really hard in terms of digital and automation and technology, but it's hard in the airline industry because what's your core product? Your core product is bringing our guests from A to B, right? It's not technology. We're not a technology organization. We're an airline. We're in an industry where, we're trying to bring people to, meet their friends and family and give them new experiences, new adventures. We're not a technology company. And so it was really hard, where a lot of the foundations of technology really was, long-term debt and not a lot of change. And so we're just trying to change all of that into this new sort of automation and technology focused organization.
I can only imagine the tech debt and just the reality of what's happened for any airline that's been around for a while, which most of them have been around for a while. It's almost catastrophic in its inability to move itself forward. Like it breaks under its own weight is what I'm thinking.
It's interesting. So we do an event 2 years in a row now called Digital Day. This year we had about 1,000 people that came through campus, and it's basically like a conference, booths, imagine, partners, but also a lot of internal WestJetters showcasing some of the technology they use to automate the things that they do day to day. We have a stage, we've got guest speakers, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things with that Digital Day is we had a panel. And so I was moderating the panel with some amazing VPs in our organization. And one of the questions that came from the audience was, well, don't we need to fix the foundations before we can actually move forward with innovation? And the answer is yes, and you have to do both because you'll never catch up otherwise. And so there's sometimes you have to leapfrog and move ahead with some technology and innovation and automation, but other times you for sure have to set up your resilience, your foundations, your tech debt, get rid of that, all that kind of stuff. But you can't, as a leader, only do one or the other. You have to fix the foundation and you have to look at innovation. And so how do you do that as a leader? You have to be able to be good at both. And so I think it's not one or the other, or maybe it's, a little bit of one while you put the other one on pause and then you finish that one and move to the other. But you have to be able to look at innovation and foundations at the same time.
I might go to far as say is you have to work on the engine while the plane is flying, which is a metaphor I use way too much, but all of a sudden I'm like, is that even appropriate? Should I say that in this context? We're going to pause everything. We're going to stop the business while we make change. And I think a lot of companies go through that, and then you analysis paralysis yourself to death. Totally. How collaborative is the industry? Because from the outside world, it looks like you're all kind of at each other a little bit. Of course, media is media. Media likes to make a good story because it sells headlines, it sells clicks, I guess, these days, but it doesn't look like it's an incredibly collaborative space between airlines. But when it comes to this, you're all benefiting or kind of getting punished by like lack or absence of innovation.
I think so. Yes, of course, we've got competitors, but that's a very small handful, like really true competitors that we may not be able to collaborate on some things. But even those competitors, you'd be surprised. There's things we have to collaborate on. Okay. When it comes to Transport Canada, government regulations, all that kind of stuff, it's in our best interest to actually be collaborating, and we are. When it comes to, we want to do biometrics in airports, we need to be collaborating with other airlines because it benefits all of us for that airport to service all of the airlines in a similar fashion, right? So yes, there are ways that we do have to collaborate from a competitive perspective, but more importantly, we have this role, digital community and ecosystem. So, one of our brilliant talents, Anne Louise on my team, who also came from Longview. She was a director there, as that happens, right? So she's now at WestJet with us. And one of her roles is the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem. And we actively are meeting with Southwest, Alaska Airlines, Delta, KLM, like a lot of organizations and airlines to learn from, what did you do in this situation? I'm thinking about doing this thing, or have you tried this technology? I was going to solve this problem with this item. Have you done this? Does it work? Oh, actually, that didn't work. Okay, let's try it differently. What are your learnings? And so this whole ecosystem is super critical to our transformation so we can learn a little bit faster. And I think, the story is hashtag better together. We talk a lot about that at WestJet is better together. And that ecosystem is huge here. We've got, different innovation organizations and associations that we are partnered with. We have conversations all the time with, whether it's Innovate Calgary, the University of Calgary, Alberta Innovates, lots of different organizations to help us on this journey. And I think that's a big learning for us as well is traditionally, I feel like, and I've only been at WestJet for 4 years, but I feel like we generally look internally because we're subject matter experts. We know our business, right? But there's so much to learn from the outside industry and the other associations and organizations outside of WestJet to enable our learnings and fast track some of the things that we want to do. And so that ecosystem external to WestJet, super important to us.
I've had a chat with a few individuals from the airline industry, a couple from the airport authority. And they said, we don't want to be looked at as this thing that's just off in the corner. We need to be part of the whole ecosystem because there's so much learning going on. And we're not just this thing that sits up in Northeast Calgary or Northwest from a perspective of the ability to collaborate and learn from each other.
It's also
so many industries seem to be knocking down those walls that 10 years ago were firmly built.
Yeah. And I mean, something's going to be coming out in the news fairly soon, I believe.
Excellent. I love bleeding edge, even though that's not what this podcast is all about.
I think one of the things as well to realize is it's not just about the airline industry, it's about how we're actually contributing to the economy and to our city, our province, our country, et cetera. So there will be a press release on something called an Aerospace Innovation Hub. It actually was released last year in terms of some funding from the Government of Canada. And so in March, kind of Q2 timeframe, we are partnered with a few different organizations, including the YYC Airport, the Calgary Airport. And we're standing up this Aerospace Innovation Hub with Innovate Calgary, which is a subsidiary of University of Calgary. And what is this all about? The Aerospace Innovation Hub is about bringing startups, organizations in the aerospace industry into Calgary, into the Calgary Airport physically, and into this ecosystem where we can all learn and understand some of the solutions that are out there to bring more to our economy here in this city and help solve real business problems in this aerospace industry. So another great example how important that ecosystem is to not just an airline, not just our business, but the entire economy.
Well, and just that diversification. And I've had people, there's a great aerospace kind of thing that goes on here. And like, if you don't know, you don't know. And there's so many and which is part of why I did the show, why our mutual friend, Kevin Crow, conned me into it many years ago, which I'm forever thankful about how many things go on in the city that if you don't happen to interact with them, you don't have any idea they exist. So a little bit of more publicity, whether that's people, from an education perspective going, I can stay here and do this career. I don't have to go away or come back later kind of thing. So I love that diversification journey we're on. How much impact did, and we're only going to talk about this once and briefly because I like to not talk about it at all. COVID had a massive impact on every business, but the airline industry, you guys got your butts handed to you at the airline level, at the airport level. This digital transformation of this, we have no choice but to move forward. Did it contribute? Was it a factor, or is it like everyone was on the journey? It just got accelerated because of COVID is what, the 5 years and 5 months kind of mindset.
It's interesting looking back. So I joined WestJet 6 weeks pre-COVID. And so the
best time or the worst time, depending on, I don't know. I haven't had to talk about that.
It was an amazing experience, although obviously very unfortunate time to join any organization. But amazing experience. I learned so much and met so many great people in a very accelerated time frame. So what I would have probably learned about this organization, this industry in probably 2 years, I learned in 6 months. All the people I had to meet, and the space I was in was end user experience. We went from 14,000 people down to 4,000. So what's my team doing? We're collecting 10,000 assets back, right? So all the things that come with putting people on pause from a career perspective and from their jobs at WestJet, all of that was taking place over the time that, I was learning in this industry. And so it was quite an amazing learning for me and a lot to do, but met a lot of great people to get the thing done, right? So we had to nearly stand down an airline. And looking back though, it would have been the most opportune time for us to actually do more digital, do more process, do more value stream mapping and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, what do you need to do? You need to salvage your dollars, right? And so
you need to survive.
Absolutely. So we were in survival mode and we've clearly gotten out of that, which is amazing. We are definitely out of COVID and post, hopefully revenge travel is also starting to be a little bit done because that's.
I like to just forget about anything to do with that, but it's still a very big reality that I believe I choose to look for the positives, that there was a lot of acceleration in digital transformation, that COVID it was moving that way. It just got it got accelerated, which I'll choose to find that positive, that silver lining.
Exactly.
Versus all the other things that we all are like, what? We're going to look back and go, we did what? But anyway, that's another story. Talk to me a little bit about looking at your, like knowing you for as long as I have, and also looking at your LinkedIn profile. You've been in the digital game since there was a digital game to be in from a career perspective. And I've had a lot of amazing people on the show. Some that you've introduced me to, Lori, at Making Change Association, talked to the girls from Toast. I've talked to many Chic Geek. I had a great conversation with her around the journey of women in tech and some of the challenges of one getting into it, but also this exodus that can often happen kind of in a mid-career when just things don't line up. You're the only female voice. I've heard so many different versions. I'd love to get a little bit of your perspective on it.
You know, it's interesting. So Making Changes, what a wonderful organization, first of all. So being on that committee, on that board, to help with what their vision is, what their mandate is around bringing, immigrant women into our city, into our culture, and into IT. What an amazing mission that they have. And it's been wonderful being part of that. Not only are they creating the education and the certifications that they require to actually get a job in the field, but they're also helping through organizations like WestJet to create that hiring opportunity, which has been fantastic. So we've personally at WestJet hired a couple Making Changes graduates, which has been fantastic. But to your point around like, how do you stay in IT? It's interesting. One of my employees, so Eric, just a couple of weeks ago, he was talking to me. He's like, you're a self-advocated people leader. You're not a technology leader necessarily. I'm a general technologist. To your point, having been in IT for 20 plus years, absolutely. I've never been a developer. I've never, designed, hands-on keyboard, a dashboard, and all the things that you do when you're a deep technologist, subject matter expert. That's never been me. But how do I stay in this world and how do I talk the talk? And so it's interesting. He's like, well, how do you do it when you don't actually know what it is exactly that we do? And I was like, you know what? Kevin's a great example. I've learned from so many amazing people enough to be dangerous. And I think what's important as a leader, especially, is you're not leading necessarily, depending on what department you're in and what team it is, but you don't always have to be a subject matter expert in the technology of the team that you're leading. Your job as a leader is to coach, mentor, and help people get the next job that they aspire to get. That is what I think my job is as a leader. And how do I remove roadblocks? How do I unlock their potential? How do I understand what their potential is and have hard, crucial conversations if they're actually not on the right path? And so I think a lot of it is around coaching, it's around mentoring, and it's around understanding like what impact can you actually have? And I think everyone as a leader has a different impact. You could be a visionary, you could be a strategist, you can be an execution person. I call myself a stratacution, so I love strategy, but I'm big on execution.
As a marketer, I love a made-up word, stratacution. That is the first I've not heard stratacution before.
Stratacution. You got it. You can't just strategize and have all the ideas.
You're a stratacutioner. Yeah, no, I got it.
Yeah,
stratacution.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm writing it down. I don't know. I'll use that later in a sentence. Like, you know what I heard today? Stratacution.
Yeah. But you got to be able to get things done. And I think as a leader, you have to realize like, what is your passion? What's your desire? Where do you want to see yourself now, soon, later? And I think, from a middle management or middle of your career, and do you stay in IT or not? I think I actually don't think it's necessarily about women or men or anything like that. It's about finding your calling and what's your purpose. And I think in your, let's call it late 30s, early 40s-ish, this is when you start, like I'm now in my next decade, right? So I'll be 47 this year. And it's about like, what is my life about? And I don't think you're thinking about that in your 20s or 30s necessarily. It's like... It's
a different filter on the world.
Totally,
let's be clear. Totally. Life moves in stages and that's okay. We're all 100%. Entitled to go through our stage.
Exactly. So I'm in the decade of, this is the decade of figuring out, okay, what do I want the rest of my life to look like? And is this the path I want to be on? And am I having enough value and impact? Because that's important to me. Might not be important to others, but what's important to me? And am I doing that in the things I'm doing every day in the job that I have? And if that's in technology, great. If it's somewhere else, fantastic. Choose what works for you.
You have excellent sound bites, just boom and scene. It was very, very, I love chatting with you because your passion comes through in spades and also you're able to articulate it. Very logistics or nuts and bolts question. That is a male-female question. So I apologize, but I think it's important. looking around going, I'm the only woman in the room. This isn't great. I don't like this. And I've heard that like that often is where that can just feel like, because it is about finding your people, and that doesn't have to be gender related, but oftentimes in IT, and I've had friends in IT, they're like, if I could find more women to hire, I would. It's a bunch of dudes. Like, this is off air. People say things like that. Has that ever been a factor? Or for you, what I'm hearing is that, well, no, I was with my people and it worked. So I could be me. And that then gender actually kind of fell away, not to put words in your mouth.
I think it's hard. It's a hard one. So, I think 20 years ago when I first started, it was all male and I was the only one in the room. And so what did that do? I learned how to hang out with males and how to talk that talk enough to be seen and to have a seat at the table, right? So you have to figure out, how do you fit or how do you make yourself fit? And so I made myself fit. And not everybody might agree with that necessarily, but I think I did a pretty good job.
But here you are today, yeah. So you have history to prove the point that it worked out.
Totally. And I think, if you sit back and you're waiting for it to happen to you, that's not the right approach. How do you make it happen for you? And how do you go from being a victim of a situation or the receiver of a situation versus enabling the situation and actually, making it happen for yourself? And I think women have to do that in a harder way. They have to actually figure out, how am I going to navigate the situation and how am I going to make sure I have a seat at the table? And you physically have to freaking sit at the table. Too many times I see, like, even in our exec room, there's people that are just not sitting at the table. They take the back seat literally out the windows, and like just that physical move and that physical change of like, just sit at the table. And I think some of us just have to do a little bit more of like, you really have to be conscious of the choices that you're making, and it has to be a focused effort to change the status quo, because it's not going to be solved within our lifetime. This is a multi-generational change.
It is.
And I do think it starts with folks like us that are having these conversations and encouraging these conversations, and through our kids as well. I have a son and a daughter, and my focus is not just on my daughter, it's on my son. Right? And so how are we making sure that both male, female, children, generations are learning about this diversity and inclusion, the criticality of it, and how important it is to actually get different results and the best results through that diversity that we actually need to run businesses?
I really appreciate that. Like, there's a lot of the old paradigms that don't work for anybody. Take gender out of it. There's a lot of roadblocks and things that get put in. And as a parent, I'm not a parent, but the ability to instill that and to give that confidence and create that broader perspective. Even I chat with my 20-year-old nephew. I'm like, he looks at the world so differently. Mm-hmm. Like, I had my head so far up my butt at 20, and he does in other ways, but not in that way. He looks at things without the same filters that I just grew up around, and no one gave them to me even deliberately. They just were the filters that they were. Did you have mentors or, people in your life, I'm assuming, that were a big part of kind of steward and anyone who's in a senior position, the ability to mentor and support and show them their potential almost through your eyes? Like, it's such a thing you can do as a leader. Was that a big part for you over the journey?
Absolutely. And I think, mentors, not just in business, but also just in personal life. So, I was a competitive curler, competitive athlete for years, trying to get...
That's right. I forgot about your curling. I knew that about you. I love that. Quirky fact about you, curler.
Yeah,
I love it.
Exactly. And I think mentors are in all facets of our lives, right? It's not just a business mentor or someone in a professional setting. You talk about Kevin Crowe. I think he's one of my guys. Phil Edgell, another one of my guys as well. These are folks from Longview, and all of this was built from founder Don Balick, right? So having that vision in mind and having those types of leaders and training them to understand what good leaders look like, I think that's really key. But I think these non-business, non-professional mentors in our lives are also important. And I think through sport, I think sport is so parallel to business in how you form a team, how you coach, how you mentor, how you practice, the process and the journey you have to go through to achieve results. I mean, I grew up, I was always looking at the freaking result. And I never enjoyed the process or the journey because I was always focused on the result. And guess what? I get the result, check, done, and I move on to the next one. Zero celebration, right? Like, that's a hard thing to learn and to teach in people that are always focused on like getting the thing done. I think we need to take more time to enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. Back to the original first comments around, trying new things and being okay with failure. I never failed at anything. I always was trying to be perfect at everything I did. And now I'm trying to teach my kids like, oh, it's okay to make mistakes. And I lived in a world where mistakes were bad. They were wrong. Like, you know, you don't cry, like you don't have all this thing, right? Like there's no emotions. There's no.
You're not allowed to be human at all.
No.
Leave your humanity out the door. It's funny because I see that you've got outdoor gymnastics. I had Kyle Schufeld on one of my other podcasts years ago, and him talking about at 10 years old, this perfectionist he had on his shoulder, and working with a sports psychologist. And he was like, I would have never reached where I reached from a performance perspective if I hadn't stopped being paralyzed by this perfectionist little, and he had it described like this little guy with the perfect hair sat on his shoulder and always told him he wasn't good enough if he didn't do the thing.
Totally.
And it was fun just listening to somebody who's performed at that level, like multiple times, and how much work he had to go through just to get that at bay and start celebrating that I was the best today. I showed up the best versus the vision of the best, which he said was like unachievable, but yet it always was on his shoulder.
And huge pressure, huge stress. So fun fact, fun story. I started curling at the age of 10. But a few years later, I became competitive, as you do in your teenage years, whatever. But into my 20s and 30s, I was super competitive. And the only thing that was always in my mind is I got to get to a Scotties, which is the Canadian Nationals for curling women, or I got to get to the Olympics. Well, there's only one team every 4 years that goes to the Olympics. Like the ability, like great to have a dream. Absolutely. Totally 100%. But what happened? Never made it to a Scotties or Olympics. I got close a few times. I went to the pre-trials and stuff. But it wasn't until I actually semi-retired, i.e. no more gym for curling, no more sports psychology, no more mental training, no more being on the ice 5, 6, 7 days a week. I stopped doing that, joined another past Olympian and past competitive, Shannon Clybrink. We join forces. We go to the casino between games. We have a good time. Lo and behold, we spend our second year together and we go to nationals. Spent 20 years trying to go. And then all of a sudden, when I get rid of all of the stuff that I was doing and just play the game and just use your strengths and your talents, enjoy yourself, there's something to be said about having a little bit less stress and focus on like you live and breathe this thing that you're trying to achieve and that end goal versus just enjoying the process and let it ride. Let's see what happens. And for us, I got to a national.
I love that story. And it's so hard to believe until you've experienced it, because you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense for you, but I'm going to keep beating myself up over here, you know? And it is that flow state that I think sports does better than almost anything else. The more you chase it, the more it's just out of your grasp. When you just show up and do the thing and you go, a couple of years ago, I had literally the best snowboard run of my life. And someone's like, what made it the best? I'm like, because of that moment, I'm like, this is the best. And I just let it be that, instead of like, oh, if I go over here, it'll be better. If I had better snow, or if I told a different story in my mind. And it's funny how people kind of reacted. They're like, what do you mean it was your best? How could you say that? Because in the moment, I just gave in to letting just be it there and do the thing. And all of a sudden, all these skills I'd been thinking about just seemed to miraculously show up. It was very weird, but I can think about it. That's immediately what I think about when I hear you say that. I'm like, oh yeah, why was it the best? Because I let it be.
Yeah, 100%. And that's right.
We're getting very philosophical here at the end. I love it. Lisa, thanks so much. One, just for your candor, your transparency, your endless enthusiasm. I've been looking forward to chatting with you. It's been too long officially, but here we are. Any last words, or I guess someone wants to get a hold of you, someone wants to learn obviously I'm hoping that there's going to be people from the team at WestJet if they want to get more involved or find out how you can help them with a project. What's the easiest way for people to reach out? Let's start with that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously internally at WestJet, it's just our email, or on Teams, totally. Microsoft Teams for sure. But externally to the company, it's LinkedIn. I do have a little bit of an active engagement on LinkedIn, whether that's through, sharing some books that I'm reading and some of the learnings through that, or sharing some of the things that are going on in the organization, some hiring and things like that. I also, through LinkedIn, have met some amazing people that I mentor. So love doing that too. Whether you're in the industry, outside the industry, women in IT, women in product management, love doing that on my spare time too. So yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way.
Very cool. Hey, you caught me. What's on top of your nightstand right now? Providing you put your books on your nightstand. What kind of top books are you reading right now, or what's getting you excited?
Oh my God. So I'm about to listen. So I listen to sort of self-help business type of stuff, and then I read fiction. Nice. The fiction book I'm reading, I'm not going to tell you because it's quite embarrassing. It's part of a book club, and it's not a title I want to share. So it wasn't my selection.
That's some risky Harlequin romance books you got going on over there. Anyways, my mind goes immediately to there.
Yeah, but the audiobook, I just finished last night a book called The Body, which was fascinating, about like 14 hours of listening to head to toe, all kinds of things around the body. But the one I'm just about to start is Radical Candor. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Oh, I love that one. Very cool. You got me so curious about your book club, but anyways, we'll talk about that off Lisa, thank you so much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure. Love the work you're doing and just the energy you bring to our whole community. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.